Hey there. Welcome to Toy Talk with Mike.
And Chad.
Episode 37. 37, yes. Episode 37. And this is our second take. Yep. We just did almost 10 minutes of introduction, and I realized I had a fan going right beside us, and it was screwing up the audio, so we're doing it again. Should we just quickly summarize what we talked about?
Yes. So it's been a while. The last time we filmed, we were talking about the forest fires that we had in Nova Scotia, which was quickly very uncharacteristic of our region.
Yeah, back in May, huge forest fires. It was a thing.
Yeah. Recently, about 2-3 weeks ago now, with Comic-Con, the Comic-Con weekend, we had the largest rainfall in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where we live, since 1971. We had about 3 months worth of rain over 24 hours. So the official measurements went anywhere from 250 to 285 millimeters, depending on where you were situated in the city. So yeah, that was like devastating, and we were trying to pay attention to Comic-Con. Mike went into more detail about Comic-Con, and
that's basically going to be the focus of this episode. Is we're going to kind of give our thoughts on some of the reveals that happened at San Diego Comic-Con. It's nice because years ago you used to have to kind of wait for everybody to go home and post their news and stuff. Nowadays everybody posts it live, and most of the panels get like live streamed, so you can really kind of participate. But this weekend with the rain, it did keep me a little preoccupied. My parents' house flooded. I know a couple collectors whose houses flooded. I fortunately didn't have flooding, but I did have to deal with some of that stuff. But I tried to watch as much of the San Diego stuff as I could. Did you watch any live panels or anything?
I didn't catch live panels, so most of the updates that I got were either from you or whatever I saw during my time on social media, scrolling through my timeline or whatever.
Well, because of the actors, writers strike, Hollywood wasn't there this year. So it was more, the focus was back on comics and toys, like it was in the 80s and 90s. So, which was good, but at the same time, I felt like the news that came out was limited, I would say. I don't know how much you'll have to talk about, but I decided we would do an episode focused on San Diego. Mm-hmm. But I really don't have that much to talk about. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So that kind of brings us up to speed, I think.
Yeah.
What we had previously covered.
So it's been like a month and a half, basically, since we've shot a video, because we did 3 at the same time.
Yep. So I still see you playing. He was over here watching UFC last night, or Saturday night.
Saturday, yeah.
Good card, by the way.
Good card.
Good
UFC card. Head kick, man.
Yeah, Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. But yeah, it was one of the best cards I've seen in years and years, because all 5 fights on the main card were great.
We're decent, yeah.
Yeah, we played poker.
We did play poker.
Yeah.
We've gone to several movies. I can't even remember. Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning was the only one that I can remember.
Yeah. By the way, I was debating on maybe going to see Oppenheimer tomorrow. You maybe want to see that?
I can. I work both jobs.
Okay.
Tomorrow. I work 2 jobs.
Yeah.
I also have a friend in from Ontario who's only going to be here for like 1 more night, so we're trying to...
Fair enough. So we've been seeing each other plenty, but the last time we sat down to record was more than a month ago. We shot 3 episodes back to back that night, so I kind of staggered them as I posted them, and we're probably going to do the same this time around. Shoot a few episodes, so don't leave us comments saying you losers are wearing the same shirt week after week. It's because we're shooting all these episodes in a single night. So
does anyone ever leave those?
No.
No.
Sometimes I kind of hope they do. I'm always trying to get you guys to comment. We don't get enough comments. I actually got kind of a mean comment today, and it actually kind of... I don't get very many mean comments, and I hope our channel never gets to the point where I have to deal with all kinds of idiots and I have to start blocking people, like some of the channels that I follow that get, hundreds if not thousands of comments. We're lucky if we get 1 or 2 comments per video. But one of my more popular past videos was a video I did where I reviewed my Spawn collection.
Okay.
And somebody just commented. So on the levels of mean, this is pretty low, but they just said you talk too much. Like, that was their whole comment. And I was like...
Don't watch my channel, then.
I was like, well, whatever. Yeah, that's what this video is me talking about toys. If I just sat here in silence, it would probably be pretty weird. So yeah, I try not to leave too much dead space, and if I do, I would probably edit it out. So I apologize to him and to anybody else that thinks I talk too much. But
you don't talk too much. It's a channel about talking about toys.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But anyway, thanks for the comment. Anyway, so yeah, even if that's what you think, go ahead and leave comments. All right. So San Diego?
San Diego. What property did you want to start with? Because I know there was a few exciting ones.
Well, for me, the panels that I watched were Hasbro's Marvel Legends panel and Hasbro's G.I. Joe panel.
Yeah.
Those are the two that I watched, and I was kind of sending you and my brother news in like real time. Other than that, I kind of caught like Pixel Dan's videos and some other news videos kind of after the fact. So I don't know. What is there anything you want to start talking about?
Let's start. Well, before we started re-recording, I was just going to say the thing that caught my attention the most from like non-toy panels was the revival of the X-Men animated series. I was kind of excited about that. The 90s.
Like the cartoon is coming back? Okay, I didn't even catch that. I saw they have new toys, but I didn't see that the cartoon was coming back.
Might have been the toys too, but I saw something that said like X-Men revival. I was like, awesome.
Okay. Well, let's hope you're right.
Let's hope I'm right. If not, I really apologize for giving wrong information, but I was a huge fan of the X-Men animated series, so that's cool.
And it wouldn't surprise me because not too long ago, maybe a year ago, they launched a comic book, I think kind of set in that world called like X-Men 92 or whichever. And they have done some X-Men animated toys in the last year or so, and they come in like VHS boxes. Yeah. So they showed a new wave of X-Men animated on blister cards. And they look fine. Although X-Men is not one of my huge fan bases. Like, they're a bit of a blind spot for me in the comic reading because like I haven't read X-Men comic books since probably the early 90s. So, and yet I'm still excited when they do a wave of X-Men reveals because I'm almost more excited to see a wave of figures that I don't want to buy.
That's fair.
It's gotten to that point where I'm spending so much money on this stupid stuff and I'm running out of space. I'm always dreading when they announce a new wave of Marvel Legends because I'm thinking like, oh, that's another $200 I need. But when they say, here's 6 X-Men, it's another Wolverine, it's another Storm, I'm like, these are all figures I don't have to buy. And there's no Build-A-Figure, which is great, because even though I love Build-A-Figures when I want the Build-A-Figure, and I want the figures that I have to buy to build that figure, I hate Build-A-Figures when only like a half of the figures you want, because then I end up buying a bunch of figures I don't want to get it. And anyway, so yeah, news of that X-Men wave, 6 figures, single carded. I don't have to buy a single one of them. Great news as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like we might have a lot to talk about with G.I. Joe, so.
Yeah, although I didn't write down every character. Like, I didn't know if I was going to go over it because there's a lot of characters. They revealed a lot.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
They gave a lot of names. They showed a lot of digital renders. They had the Dragonfly helicopter there on display.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I think they said something like they were hoping to get that out sooner than expected. Because right now I think the release date is summer 2024, so it's a full year out. But yeah, hopefully that comes a little bit sooner than that. But yeah, so of the G.I. Joe panel, was there anything that jumped out to you that hit you?
How many came out? Like, I only started recently collecting all the G.I. Joe classified figures. Like, you got me into that. And
yeah,
I'd say it's probably been since last summer, maybe, that I really started collecting them. And my collection, I've got well over 35 of them now. So that's, like, when you said they've announced like 47 more Joes, I was like, oh my god, like all the...
Yeah, I wasn't planning on going over all the Joes, but I might as well, actually, because watching that panel it got to the point where I'm like, I need to keep a checklist.
Yeah.
Because I'm buying the toys as they come out. I have basically a complete line of G.I. Joe Classified. So I'm not necessarily worried, like I don't need a checklist to find old ones I missed or anything like that, but just to keep track of what I pre-ordered from where.
Yeah.
It's gotten crazy. So I made a list on my phone. I'm just going to read through it. So besides the whatever 80 figures that I already have in my collection, these are some figures that they revealed in name only. So a retro carded Duke is coming, a retro carded Scarlet, so Torch, the Dreadnought, and Jinx, the red female ninja. So we know those guys are coming. And that was almost kind of a given, because Jinx is probably going to be a repaint of the blue Cobra Ninja. Yeah. And Scarlet, when they revealed Glenda, it was pretty much a given that they were going to repaint Glenda into Scarlet. So, and Torch, even though we didn't necessarily know he was coming, Buzzer and Ripper have already been announced too, and they're a trio, so that was obvious. The retro card Duke could be cool. I'm curious if they're just going to repaint the existing Duke, or if they're going to give us a whole new head sculpt and all that sort of stuff. I think they probably should. I love the original classified Duke, but if they're going to do a retro carded Duke, I think they should give him his more traditional parted hair and kind of go more animated looking.
Okay, so that,
I would hope. But anyway, so those are the names. And then they showed us digital renders or mock-ups, like actual prototype figures of Mutt and Junkyard. And then some of these were at San Diego, some of them were previous. But so Shadow Tracker is another character they've shown us, but we don't know when he's going up for sale yet. Python Patrol Copperhead, Python Patrol Cobra Officer, or Trooper, I guess. Buzzer and Ripper, the Dreadnoughts. Shockwave, who was like my favorite G.I. Joe figure when I was a kid. He was like the blue SWAT guy. Agent Helix, General Hawk. There's a Crimson 3-pack with Tomac, Zaymont, and Baroness, which is going to be a Pulse
in
exclusive.
The red, of course.
Yeah. The Techno Viper and SMS like missile system. So Techno Viper is very cool. And then this was a surprise to I think everybody, was Clutch and the Vamp Jeep. And I don't think they spoke about price point. I'm very curious what it's going to be price point, because I think that's just going to be a retail release.
Yeah.
Would you buy that?
I would.
Because like I've bought the vehicles that they've put out so far are 3 motorcycles, Serpentor's Chariot, and there's a Trouble Bubble that's went out for pre-order. They're all small little one-man vehicles. The other 2 vehicles, the Hiss Tank and the Helicopter, were HasLab projects that they had to kickstart. You had to pay them, a year in advance, and they cost hundreds of dollars. Like the Hiss Tank and the Dragonfly each cost me just shy of $500. That's with the Canadian conversion and the shipping. And I can't afford to be dropping $500 on a new vehicle every year. Plus, I don't have the space. So when they showed the Vamp, like, how much can that possibly be at retail? Like, $150 or so? Like, for it to be at Toys R Us, I can't imagine them charging too much more than that.
I can't either. I mean, looking at the Chariot, I mean, that's a decent-sized Chariot, so...
Yeah, but a Jeep that's going to
sit 2 or 4 people.
Should be 2. The old one was only ever 2.
Okay, so...
like $200?
In this market, I'd say probably $179. Toys R Us might put it up to like $199.
Because I know Hasbro tried to make a couple of vehicles for the 6-inch Star Wars Black Series. Like they made a TIE Fighter and an X-Wing and stuff. And I don't think those sold very well.
No.
So I don't know how they're going to put out the Vamp. And I think G.I. Joe's doing well and it's popular, but it doesn't have the fan base that Star Wars does. I don't know how they're going to put that out, ask $200 for it, and hope to sell it. It has to be a more competitive price. But if they put that out at, say, $150, I imagine there's going to be some fan outcry to be like, well, then why did we have to pay like $350 for the Hiss Tank and the Helicopter? Like, if you can make them that affordable. Because I think with the HasLabs, they've been kind of selling us this bill of goods. Like, look, we could never make a 6-inch vehicle for retail prices. Like, we have to do it this way. So I don't know if they're going to shoot themselves in the foot by putting the Vamp out at a reasonable price.
I mean, I feel like, what was Serpentor? Like $129 something.
Was it even that much? I don't remember.
Well, I'm just going off the secondary market trying to find him,
right.
which is impossible. Let's say he was 129. I can't see them going any higher than that unless you're putting like really in-depth work into the van.
Well, it's going to be more than the Chariot for sure. Like,
yeah.
Just thinking of the vintage, like I have a vintage vamp right there. You can see the size of the vamp compared to what was the vintage Chariot, which is maybe half the size and doesn't have as many moving parts. That one has like wheels and, gun turn on the back and everything. And it comes with a figure too. Like it comes with clutch.
Yeah.
Like if it didn't come with the figure, I think maybe they could get it down to a more reasonable price. But I wouldn't buy it if it didn't come with clutch. No matter how cool it looks, I don't have room for it. But I have to buy it if it comes with clutch. All right, so let me move on from that for a second. So besides all those figures I just named, this is the list of G.I. Joes that have already been made available for pre-order, and I have already put my order in for them. And they should probably all be out before the end of the calendar year. So, Snow Job, the Cobra Valkyries 2-pack, Dr. Mindbender, Wild Bill and the Dragonfly Helicopter, along with Glenda, Night Force Ripcord, Night Force Crazy Legs. Then there's Grunt, Low Light, Tunnel Rat, Nunchuck, Desert Snake Eyes, Crimson Viper, Classic Firefly, Snow Serpent. Then there's the Hiss Trooper 3-pack, which I want to talk about a little bit more, but that includes a Hiss Officer, Hiss Trooper, and a Hiss Range Viper. Then there's Tripwire, there's the Steel Brigade Trooper 2-pack, Cobra Eel, Chuckles, Night Force Big Ben, Range Viper, the Crimson Alley Viper, Shooter, Mole Rat, Tiger Force Flint, and Python Patrol Vipera. So those are all the G.I. Joe figures coming out. And that alone is enough to put me in the poorhouse. Yeah. Let alone Transformers and Marvel Legends and everything else. Like, that's a lot of product.
So if that's a lot of product for you, imagine what that is for me, because you're a completionist. I joined the party a little too late, so it's more difficult to track down like the older releases. Yeah. Probably zero ability to do so at this point, unless you want to pay a premium on like eBay or whatever.
But they're probably gonna like who are some of the old ones that you missed out on that you're like regretting?
The original Baroness, but she's retro carded now, right?
Well, the retro card, even that one might be hard to find at this point, but like if you get that Crimson set, you'd get a red Baroness.
The Crimson set, that would be okay.
But like you never got the Amazon Roadblock, for example.
No, I didn't.
But they're probably going to repaint him into Tiger Force colors eventually, so you'll be able to get Tiger Force Roadblock.
It's hard to...
Yeah, I got all my collections over there. That's what we're looking at. But, yeah, there's...
Serpentor. Well, he was somewhat new. He was like last November.
But they've been repainting so many characters and re-releasing them that... maybe you're not going to get a guy in your favorite outfit, but you'll probably be able to get that character. It's not like the vintage toy line where if you missed out on Grunt in 1982, they didn't release another Grunt again until like 2003 or something. Like, they're probably going to repaint Grunt, 3 or 4 times. So
I guess for me, it was the lack of availability of Cobra Infantry. You had 3 and graciously sold me one of yours. But like that's such a huge market, and like I gather that Cobra is the more popular.
But the Cobra factions. Trooper, that was always going to be impossible to find because people love the classic blue shirt.
Yeah,
and people army build them. So yeah,
I'm surprised they actually haven't released different skin tone colors of those ones like they have in. The reaction figure lines, or even female versions. I know they're coming, but...
So, hang tight. I'm sure you'll get everybody you're looking for. But yeah, it's a lot of figures. So anyway, the pack that I wanted to talk about that they just revealed at San Diego was, and I forget what they're calling it, but it's like the Hiss Trooper pack. Yeah. So the Hiss tank, it comes with 4 figures. So it comes with 3 Hiss pilots, essentially, and a Cobra commander. And so then they put out this pack here, which has got a Range Viper, a Cobra Trooper, with the ones you're talking about, and a Cobra officer. but they're all painted in a new color scheme, which we've never seen before. It's all black and red to match the Hiss tank, which is very cool. And the fact that they revealed the Techno Viper with the missile launcher, it's kind of weird because they haven't done an actual Techno Viper yet. The Techno Viper, are you familiar with him? He wears purple. He's got a purple outfit. So this Techno Viper that they revealed, he's again part of the Hiss squad. So he's like a Hiss Techno Viper with the missile launcher because the Hiss tank is going to have a little tow cable. So the missile launcher will be able to attach to that. And now this Techno Viper will be like part of that squad. So now that squad is like 7 deep because you got 3 Hiss drivers, the 3-pack, and then the Techno Viper. So it's going to be this whole little gang of Hiss guys, which is pretty cool. And it guarantees that that the Techno Viper is going to get repainted in purple probably within the next... We'll probably see that reveal in the next 3 months or something. So...
Interesting.
Yeah. And Shockwave, I'm super stoked about Shockwave. I'm super stoked about all these things is the problem. Like, there's so many great figures coming up. And I guess one thing we should mention is... So Chuckles, he's the G.I. Joe undercover agent. He was the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive figure. And they revealed him a while back. And I was in a bit of a panic. Like, am I going to be able to get him? I thought they'd be selling him at the show. But even if you had attended the show, all that you got there was a QR code that allowed you to go home and buy it on HasbroPulse.com. And then, after they allowed everybody with the QR code to do it, they put up the remaining for the general public. So there was only a limit of 2 per person. I bought 2 because I got to buy one for me and for my brother Doug. And so you didn't get it.
That's a whole other can of worms. Hasbro, you need to seriously look at your website. I was trying to do this on my lunch break at work. So I'd sign up for a Hasbro account. And then it's like, oh, the username doesn't exist. And I was like, what are you talking about? You literally just sent me an email saying, welcome to Hasbro Pulse. And then I try to log in. I know what the password is.
Yeah.
Nothing. And it's saying invalid username or password. And I've double, triple checked it, tried to contact them, and it's like, we don't have record of your account. So how am I going to get these Hasbro Pulse?
I know.
I don't know. It's so annoying.
I think he's still available on there. I was worried that he would have sold it like instantly.
Yeah.
But maybe he's sold it now. I haven't. It's not like I check every day.
You don't need to.
I've got him. But I think I checked like a day or 2 afterwards and he's still there. So, yeah, you've got to get that sorted out and get him.
Come on, Hasbro.
Now, I am hoping, and it's hard to know, like when you missed out on Serpentor originally, I said, don't worry, I'm sure they'll release another version of Serpentor without the Chariot later. But there's no track record yet to say that that's necessarily true. Like, sure, they love to re-release things and repaint things that I still think they will. But, like with Dr. Mindbender, I'm waiting on that pre-order.
Yeah.
I had to pay, I think I considered overpay for him because he's considered a deluxe figure. But all he comes with is a bunch of useless junk, some beakers and stuff that I don't have any use for. So I could have said, I'm not going to pay for this deluxe figure. I'll wait for the non-deluxe retail, which I assume is coming. But I don't know, so I had to pull the trigger and pay the overprice for it. Chuckles is also considered a deluxe figure because he comes with a bunch of extra bullshit that you probably don't need. But I couldn't take the chance that they would, maybe wait on him and hope they re-release him later. So hopefully they do in case you're not able to get this one. But I had to pay what they were asking. So
he's still sourceable. I've seen him on Amazon through second-party stores that Airlab is selling on Amazon for like $179, and even on eBay, by the time he gets shipped, it's over 200 Canadian. So I'm like, but he was one of the G.I. Joes that I had as a kid, and I loved him. So.
Yeah, he was a character. I've talked about this plenty of times on the channel, but like me and my brother Doug, we split our collections when we were kids. So, I would buy Cobra Commander and he would buy Duke and, vice versa. He had Chuckles as a kid. I didn't. And any of the characters that my brother had, I tend to have kind of less of a personal connection to. But Chuckles was really kind of elevated by IDW when they were publishing their G.I. Joe Cobra comic book, which was mostly about the Cobra characters, but Chuckles was undercover within Cobra, and it really made him a much more interesting character than he ever seemed. Because I thought the original toy looked made him look old, because he was sculpted with kind of like bags under his eyes, and I didn't love that. And the cartoon, which we watched together, he was only in the G.I. Joe animated movie, and he was kind of a big lunkhead. And so, yeah, I never really liked Chuckles all that much, but until the comic books came out and made him a must-have character for me. So I'm glad I got him. I think he's supposed to ship in November.
Okay. Well, I'll keep trying, but
right.
Maybe I'll have to make up a fake email address just to get him.
Yeah. All right, so that's the G.I. Joe panel, I think. Was there anything more in there?
Nothing for me, really.
Okay. Now, the Marvel panel, I know you're not really a Marvel collector, you buy the odd one. But I was happy because there wasn't much there. So, like, besides the X-Men wave that we talked about, there was also a Midnight Suns wave, which is kind of like the darker fringes of Marvel. But it was like a newer version of Blade. Now, it's probably better than the Blade I currently have, but I don't like Blade enough to bother to upgrade him. Same as there's Daredevil with a beard from kind of Daredevil's current storyline. Now, I like Daredevil. I like Daredevil with a beard, but I already have like 5 Daredevil figures. They've already announced he's got a new #1 coming out like in September, I think, and he's lost the beard. He's back to classic outfit. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be just a moment in time. I don't really need a figure of that 1 year that Daredevil had a beard. So yeah, there was nothing in there that felt that I had to buy. I probably will get a couple of them in time, like Doctor Strange's girlfriend Clea. She's a character that's never had a figure before. I'll probably want to pick her up. Lady Bullseye is a Daredevil villain who's never had a toy before. But even them, they weren't characters that I like needed to have. So I kind of waited. I'll probably buy them when I see them in store. But yeah, I don't know if was there anything else Marvel Legends wise that I wanted to talk about. Anything you want to talk about in the meantime while I look at this?
Oh dear.
A couple things they did show that I wanted to mention. So for Marvel Legends, they showed the Alistair Smythe.
Yes, that's what we were talking about.
So that's one that I will pre-order. I haven't yet, because I don't feel I need civilian characters. Like, it's not that I'm against them, but it's just like, if I have Peter Parker as a character, I don't have any of the other, like, I don't have a Tony Stark figure, I don't have a Steve Rogers figure. Sometimes I have an unmasked Iron Man or something, but, like, if you're not going to go ahead and do all of them, like, I don't really need just one character. So, with these Spider-Man animated 2-packs, they made a really cool Dr. Octopus that I really want.
Yep.
But they paired him with Aunt May. And I don't really need an Aunt May figure.
Well, when I saw that reveal, I actually asked you, like, that's a really odd pairing, and then you
yeah, they were engaged.
Yeah, you filled me in on that storyline, which I still think is really weird, but...
Yep, and then they did the Green Goblin, and they paired him with Mary Jane. Which, you would think they would have paired him with Gwen Stacy, but maybe that's more the comic connection. I don't really remember in the 90s cartoon what Green Goblin's and Mary Jane's connection was. Maybe he threw her off a bridge or something. But anyway, they put Green Goblin and Mary Jane together. I had to buy the Green Goblin because he's like my favorite Spidey villain. And I'll take the Mary Jane, but I didn't really need her. And now this new set, it's Alistair Smythe, the first ever Marvel Legend of Smythe. But it comes with Peter Parker. And I already even have a Peter Parker. I have the nerdy one they released with the glasses. So yeah, I really don't need an animated Peter, so that kind of slowed me down from jumping and ordering it right away. But I really would like that Smythe figure, so I will get it.
Does he come in his little, like,
wheelchair thing?
Nope.
Because I think these animated Spider-Man figures and the X-Men figures, they're based on like the 90s Toy Biz figures. So I have the Alistair Smythe from the 90s, and yeah, he's got his gray kind of monstery legs, and he's just bare-chested with his spikes on him. He doesn't have a wheelchair, which is fine with me because I would probably up the cost of him.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, this figure basically looks a lot like the 90s Toy Biz. But yeah, a couple other ones that they showed. So there was a Iron Man villain, I guess we call him, called Detroit Steel. and he's like he's kind of like the Ironmonger. He's like a big, hefty guy, except he's painted like the American flag. Okay. He came from like the Matt Fraction years of writing Iron Man. I don't know if they've done a whole lot with him since those Matt Fraction stories, which was a decade ago or more. But anyway, he's kind of a cool character. But because he's big, he's probably going to be expensive. I don't care enough about him that if he comes out and he's $100, I'll probably pass. But if I can get him for a reasonable price, I might pick him up. But the most exciting one was Crystar, the Crystal Warrior. Did you see him?
I think you might have shown me a picture.
Now, are you familiar with Crystar?
Not overly.
Now, I'm not going to be a poser and try and tell you that I'm a huge Crystar fan, because I'm not. But Crystar was an 80s property.
Okay.
It was an 80s toy line. In my mind, I would put it on the same level as, say, like Silverhawks or something. It was one of these toy lines I didn't really get into, but I was well aware of it. It seemed to be like kind of it had a big year. You know, every kid I know had at least like one Crystar figure in their collection. It had a Marvel comic book, and then it went away, and I've never heard anything more about it. The toys were really cool because all the heroes were all Crystal Warriors, so they were all made of translucent plastic, and they kind of looked like, you know, an Iceman figure. And then the bad guys were all like molten rock, so they were all. So I have a couple of the Crystar figures in my little display cases out in the other room there, but I don't actually have Crystar. I never had him. He was the hero. And I was watching the Marvel Legends panel, and they revealed this, and the crowd got all excited because he's such an obscure character that you never thought we would get. And I always thought the reason we haven't got him again is because he's one of these weird 80s obscure properties. Like Marvel used to publish Godzilla comic books and Conan comic books and Micronaut comic books and ROM comic books. All these characters that were like licensed, and then they lose the license and it gets tied up in red tape. Like they can't make a ROM toy because, you know, some toy company owns the right to ROM or whatever. Anyway, apparently somebody had suggested to them they make Crystar, and they thought, well, we can't make him because I'm sure his licensing rights are tied up with somebody else. And they had to look into it, and they realized, like the Marvel people realized, we own Crystar. Because apparently in the 80s, Marvel was doing all these licensed properties. Like Hasbro was approaching them with toy ideas and said, will you make a comic to support this? That Hasbro or Marvel tried the reverse. Like, why don't we come up with a character that would make a good toy line, and we'll pitch that to Hasbro or Kenner or whoever made the Crystar figures back in the day. So even Marvel didn't realize they owned Crystar as a character. And so now we're getting Crystar. And I hope that we get maybe some of the other Crystar crew. But that's a pretty exciting kind of curveball. Alright, what's next? So I think I know the answer, but did you buy any other San Diego exclusives other than the Chuckles that you might try and get?
No.
I bought some Super 7 stuff. Nothing crazy, but some of their Super 7 Godzilla reaction figures. Mm-hmm. So they had a glow-in-the-dark King Ghidorah and a glow-in-the-dark was it Biollante? Not Biollante, what's it? Hedorah. Right? Yeah, so I bought the glow-in-the-dark, those guys, and they also had a Godzilla chewing on a train. So I ordered all those from Big Bad Toy Store. So they're coming. They did have a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Ultimates Godzilla figure, and he was bright green. He had blood all over his mouth. I would have liked to have gotten that, but at the time that it went up for sale, I had ordered the gray version of that exact toy, and it was in the mail. So I kind of really wanted to get that in my hand and see how awesome it is or not awesome it is before I pull the trigger. So I do have that Ultimate Godzilla figure sitting there on my desk, and I'm not going to review it this episode, but it is on my to-do list very soon. And depending on how I feel about it, I might get that San Diego green one if it's still available. Okay, what else did I make note of here? So you sure you got nothing else?
I have nothing else. Yeah.
Well, you're more of a Turtles guy than I am. What do you think of some of the Turtle reveals?
I like them, so we're going to shoot another episode tonight with...
Yeah, you got all the new Turtle figures from the new movie, which we're going to talk about in another episode.
So I'm still kind of like trying to process a lot of that. I didn't catch too many of the images.
Well, like there was a lot of that Mirage stuff.
Yeah. The really cool one I sent you the picture of was...
was it a Shredder one? Or
the Shredder one.
Because I really like the Rat King.
The Rat King and
Leatherhead.
Leatherhead, yes.
Yeah. So they were both based on the old Eastman Laird comic books.
That is a creepy looking Rat King.
Yeah. It's the best Rat King figure I've ever seen.
Oh, hands down.
And yeah, the Leatherhead was cool too. Although it's kind of weird because he's like naked.
Yeah.
And I'm used to Leatherhead in pants. But yeah.
And a hat.
Yeah, and the whole getup. Yeah. But yeah, I love those figures, but I've been trying to back away from Ninja Turtles. Because I feel I just have too many of them as it is. So they were kind of cool. Let me see, what else did I make note of? This isn't a line that either of us collect really, but so Super 7, their booth there. So they had the Cat's Lair.
Yeah, that was super cool.
So that is the Thundercats headquarters. So they are doing that. It's like when you see the Snake Mountain behind me. So this is something that Super 7 made, and it is gigantic, and it was very expensive. Yeah. And the the Cat's Lair for Thundercats is about the same height, maybe a little taller, but I think it's quite a bit deeper.
It is.
And anyway, so it's bigger than this thing. It's they put it up as a kind of a Kickstarter type thing. Like we have to hit a minimum 3,000 purchases, I think, before. And anyway, I saw just before we started shooting, they did achieve they've funded it. It's gonna happen. I didn't buy it. I even if it was $100, I couldn't buy it. It's like I don't have room for that thing in here.
Do we know what the price point was?
Yeah, it was surprisingly, I think, comparable to this. Okay. Like it was I think $650 American or something, which to us would be like almost like $1,000 with the shipping too. Like this thing was expensive, and it's still to this day a little hard for me to enjoy that. I look at it and it's awesome, but I can't help thinking like I could have bought like a used car instead of that thing. But anyway,
Snake Mountain's fine though.
Yeah, but yeah, so the Cat's Lair is pretty cool. I'm stoked that the people that would want it are now able to get it, because it would be really sad if it didn't fund and fizzled out. But the other thing they had there was the Silverhawks figures, and again, I don't know if you followed this at all, but like the old Silverhawks figures in the 80s. Did you have any of them?
Couple.
Did you? I didn't have any. It was like not a property that was really on my radar. But again, most of my friends had one or two of them. But they were vac metal chrome. Yeah. So you could kind of see like your face reflected in them. Now, vac metal, just as a process, from what I understand, is maybe not environmentally friendly, or it's, you can't do articulated figures with it because the more joints you have, the more likely it is to chip. Yeah. Those old vintage figures didn't really have much in the way of joints. So anyway, Super 7 did Ultimate Silverhawks figures maybe 2 or 3 years ago. They first announced them. And people were really disappointed when they saw that they were just going to be kind of like matte gray. Yeah. Which matched the animation, because obviously the animation wasn't chrome. So that's how Super 7 sold it. It's like, look, these are based on the animated series. But a lot of people were like, we want them chrome, like our old toys. And Super 7 went on video and said, we can't. That's impossible. It's like illegal or something to do this, because it's not safe for like Chinese workers to work with this vac metal process. Like they gave a bunch of reasons why it was never going to happen. Now, I don't care about Silverhawks, so I didn't buy any. But if I was a big Silverhawks fan, and that's what the guy that's making the figures told me, like, this is never going to happen, so this is the best you're going to get, I'd be like, well, I guess this is what I got to buy. So anyway, now that the Silverhawks are like 3 waves deep, they showed the main characters vac metaled at San Diego Comic-Con. So all chromed out. And I don't know. I kind of gauged some of the fan reaction, like reading some comments on the videos. And it seems to be obviously pretty... You get some really strong and some really negative reactions. And I understand both sides. So like, what would you think of that, I guess?
I would feel cheated by the company. Because, like... For that exact reason, let's say, I was a big fan and I didn't necessarily have that money at the time, but bought it anyway based on them saying it's literally impossible, we can't do this. And then a few years later find out they're doing it anyway. Like, I would have felt cheated right away. I don't know. My support might have lingered after that.
Yeah, these Silverhawks figures are not $20 figures. They're $55, $65. Canadian, $85. So if I invested in buying the group, because I think there's like 4 to 6 main character Silverhawks that are chrome. So if I already own like 3 or 4 of them and now they show me they're doing chrome ones, I'd be kind of pissed. But when you see like the guy who owns Super 7, his explanation is that like it was impossible, but we kept hearing from fans that that's what they wanted. So we've been bending over backwards trying to find a way to make it work. And he explained how like we're gonna sell them because this is what people want, but we don't really stand behind the quality. Like this will chip if you pose the figures too much. These are display purposes, so buy them, put them in your shelf. Don't pose them around too much because it'll flake away. So like in a way, like maybe that's them being like super decent about like, look, fans want this no matter if it's gonna last or not. And so I don't know.
So on the other hand, as a current business student, though, why would you put your name on something you didn't believe in, like for a product like that?
Well, like
I understand fan demand, but
if you buy a Silverhawk statue and it's all chromed out, like it kind of goes to the scene. You're not supposed to run around your backyard flying it around or taking it in your bathtub. Like I don't know if people are doing that with their Ultimate Silverhawks figures. But like I think if Super 7 says, look, we heard over and over and over again, you guys want chrome. Most of you guys just put it in your shelf on display anyway. So here it is. But it's going to be very delicate, so be careful with it. I kind of get it. Like they originally didn't think we can release an action figure this way. So I'm of two minds. Because I don't think they were lying to us initially. But like in a bit of a similar scenario, I buy Action Force figures, which is a line of 6-inch military figures. They were created by a guy named Bobby Valla. He used to work at Hasbro. He used to work on the G.I. Joe line. When he got laid off from Hasbro, he said, I'm going to go start my own company called Multiverse, and I'm going to start a line of 6-inch action figures. And he did multiple interviews and videos when he was trying to drum up support for his line. And he said, look, all you G.I. Joe collectors, because G.I. Joe was kind of dead at the time, the line had fizzled out. He's like, I just left Hasbro. Trust me, there's nobody at Hasbro that gives a shit about G.I. Joe anymore. Everybody like me got laid off. It's just a bunch of corporate, guys up there. They don't see the brand as viable. Like the movies didn't make that much money. There's zero appetite for 6-inch G.I. Joe figures. Hasbro is never going to make those. So if you want 6-inch military, you have to come to me. And it was a pretty convincing argument. Now, I don't necessarily think he was lying, but dropped my phone. Before he even got his first wave of figures, so I had pre-ordered them and I had prepaid for them. While I was waiting for those figures to ship, Hasbro announces 6-inch G.I. Joes, and they delivered like 2 or 3 waves of those figures to me before I even got wave 1 of Multiverse. And obviously, he didn't work at the company anymore. He doesn't know what they were doing behind closed doors, but like he came and very confidently told people and he's a toy insider. We're not. He's given us his word that this is not going to happen. He didn't say, look, as far as I know, there was no appetite when I was there, that they could change their minds any minute. He was like, nobody wants to do this. He told us he tried to pitch 6-inch G.I. Joes. And you do feel a little bit led on, because if I had known 6-inch G.I. Joes were coming, maybe I wouldn't have bothered to get in on Multiverse or not. So, it sort of feels like that again with these Silverhawks. I don't fault them, but like we were kind of trusting them. They're the insider guys. Yeah. If they say vac metal's impossible, I believe you. But then you give me vac metal 2 years later, and I'm like, Anyway, so that's a thing. The only other things I guess I wanted to talk about, there was some cool Masters of the Universe stuff, the Filmation style. Yep. Now you mentioned you might actually get on board with those.
Yes, I did.
So that's another thing I'm dragging you into?
I wouldn't say from scratch, because I did have some of them when I was younger. So, yeah. But
yeah. So this line that I collect, Masters of the Universe Origins, because there's 2 current lines going. There's Masterverse, which are 7-inch figures. They're quite nice. But I already have a pretty solid line. You can see some of them behind me here of Masters of the Universe Classics. And they were like 6-inch scale He-Man figures. So I am trying to avoid Masterverse because I'm like, those are good enough. But then the Origins line, which is like a little 5-inch line of squatty little He-Man that is based on the retro toy line from the 80s, I kind of got on board with them.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty big collection of them. I keep thinking that's going to fizzle out. I hear online that it's going to fizzle out. They're getting really hard to find at retail. Walmart's got them on clearance all the time and stuff. It seems like it's in trouble, but then they keep announcing like new stuff.
Figures.
And so I'm always wondering, like, when is that line coming to an end? Now, you know that like Masters of the Universe like kitty show that was just out recently where they're all exaggerated?
Yeah.
That seems like it might have come to an end because there was no reveals for that line. Those figures have started showing up at the dollar store. So I think that's probably over. But with the Origins figures, they showed a bunch of new figures, including these ones that are based on the old 80s Filmation. And I like that look, too. So it's another excuse to sell me another He-Man, another Skeletor, another Trapjaw. And it would be a good jumping on point for somebody like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Specifically Skeletor. He's one of my favorites.
Like, I have this scale, this 7-inch scale, whatever, I have a Filmation Skeletor, which I love. Like, the same as the He-Man, the Filmation He-Man, the Filmation Merman. Like, I love those characters. So getting them in the old 80s style would be pretty cool. Let me see. Okay, a few other weird odds and ends. Mezco, they have their own line of kind of reaction figures, they're called 5 points. I don't have many of their figures. I bought the Crow from my all-time favorite movie. Mm-hmm. I bought some of their Godzilla figures. My dog's barking. Hopefully that doesn't go on too long. They had a Josie and the Pussycat set. Did you see that?
I did see that. That was kind of cool.
Because it's got the little drum kit and it's on a little, like a circle riser. And then you get the two other girls. I'm like, I might kind of want to get the Josie and the Pussycat set. Star Wars Black Series, there was very little to get excited about.
I feel like that line is dying.
That's what I think too. Like, they did show like 3 waves of figures. One of them was for Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were those holiday figures that are like stormtroopers painted like snowmen and stuff. And I feel like the novelty of that was cute the first year, but now it's like you're going to do this every year. And they showed like 7 or 8 more figures. It's like enough already. So that doesn't seem like it bodes well for the line. And I was hoping there would be some more Spawn stuff. Like, McFarlane was there at San Diego. Right, my dog is going to be quiet. She's out in the yard right outside my window here, barking her face off. So, anyway. So yeah, I was hoping McFarlane would reveal some more Spawn stuff. He didn't show any new Spawn figures, but he did announce his next Kickstarter. Did you see that?
I did.
So he has got Medieval Spawn as a new Kickstarter, similar to what the Spawn Kickstarter he did back in, I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
Super detailed figure. Looks very cool. He's going to have a ton of detail, a ton of paint, a ton of like articulation.
So you're going to have chains?
I don't think because they showed like an all gray prototype, but he mentioned he's going to have a big old cape because there was no cape on the prototype. Yeah. And I imagine it's going to have chains. Yeah. So the previous Kickstarter had real metal chains on it and all that stuff. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Did you back it?
He hasn't launched it yet.
When he launches, are you backing?
Probably.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to review this figure this episode, but I just bought a Medieval Spawn figure from him like a month ago.
Yeah.
And the guy that was interviewing him when he revealed this Kickstarter even said that. He's like, so what's your next Kickstarter going to be? And he said, I'm doing Medieval Spawn. And he's like, didn't you just release Medieval Spawn at retail? And he's like, yes, and that's a cool figure, but like my Kickstarter figures are kind of a whole nother level, and that's when he showed it. And like, yeah, I think comparatively it's apples and oranges. Yeah. Like, this guy's going to have so much more going on for him. He'll be more of a display piece. So, and the prices are reasonable. Like that first Kickstarter Spawn, like it got more expensive if you get the deluxe version with the signed, Todd autograph and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't crazy priced either. So yeah, I'll probably back it. Quite certain I will. So that's everything I have for San Diego. But you are, or at least you were, a big DC Multiverse collector. I know it's kind of toned down. He did show some of that stuff. Was there anything DC-wise that was noteworthy to you?
The Batman and Spawn 2-pack. That's one that I would like to get my hands on. I currently don't have any Spawn figures. I was only allowed to read like the first issue of Spawn when it came out, and then my mom was like, "No, too violent." And I was like, "Really? I'm like 10."
Yeah, no, Spawn's cool, and like Spawn and Batman have had now 3 crossovers.
Yeah.
So it does make sense that he would put the 2 together.
I think I'm just leaning away from
DC?
McFarlane. Yeah, like I think the reason for that is because it took so long to open some of those boxes, and by the time I did, I was like, the quality control is a little questionable on some of the figures, and like there's no appetite for accessories or anything.
Yeah.
So
now that there was also that Batman 6-pack.
Yeah, that went out of stock very quickly.
Yeah, he said that a couple times because he did the 89 Batman and Batmobile.
Yeah.
And he went on like Amazon and
I couldn't get it.
Sold out immediately, and he's been getting a lot of backlash from that.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you make more of these? And then the same thing happened with this set, where it's all 6 Batman, all 6 cinematic versions. So you get like the Michael Keaton, you even get the George Clooney and the Val Kilmer and
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, and it comes with a cool little
Christian Bale. You get the bat signal with a faceplate specific to each Batman logo. So, like, man, that literally, I specifically planned my break.
So you would have bought that?
Yeah, around the time that it was supposed to go live.
Yeah.
And I got onto Amazon like a minute before, kept refreshing the screen, typing it in, refreshing. Gone within minutes.
Yeah, it's rough.
Annoying.
Yeah, I don't think there was much that I cared about for the DC stuff that he showed. Like there was that weird blue and red painted Superman, which was based on a specific artwork that looked cool, but putting it in 3 dimensions didn't really work.
Doesn't make sense.
He had a lot of statues on display there, but I don't buy statues. So yeah, I think that's kind of my San Diego wrap up. There wasn't... So there was like nothing for movies, I don't think. I think they showed a new trailer for Miss Marvel or the Marvels or something maybe. Comic books, there was a little bit of news, but nothing that really interested me. Like there was I think it was San Diego they announced this. It might have been a couple of days before or after, but they're doing a Godzilla and Justice League mashup comic book.
Oh yeah.
Which that'd be cool. That'd be up my alley. They announced there's going to be a new Punisher, and some people got all freaked out about that too, but whatever. Like, they change characters all the time. So I'm sure Frank Castle will be the Punisher again eventually, but there's going to be a new guy in the meantime.
Hopefully with the old school symbol.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that new symbol.
Me neither, but of course it'll go back. That's the thing. Things always go back. So, yeah. People that freak out over, when they announced that, like, Spider-Man's dead or Batman's dead, and they're like, they're going to be back in, like, 3 or 4 months, so I don't know why people get so worked up.
Duke came back.
Yep. Everybody comes back. All right. So that's it. Shall we wrap up and shoot another episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this wasn't too boring because we didn't splice in any toy reviews or anything. This was literally just us shooting the shit for like 50 minutes, I think. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, let us know. And like, subscribe.
Comment.
Leave
us comments.
Yep. All right. So we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks. Ciao.
Keep collecting.